So after looking at the evolution of the information system, we'll look at the different support systems or information system support for other levels of management as we've discussed before. So we will have to look at the details on this part. We will start with the transaction processing system, which supports monitoring, collection, storage, processing, and dissemination of the information's basic business transactions. These are information systems that support the lowest, the basic transactions or the repetitive transactions of organization. Automates routine and repetitive tasks that are critical to the operation of the organization, such as preparing a payroll, billing customers, point of sale, and warehouse operation. Data collected from this operation supports the management information systems and decision support systems employed by middle management. Computerizes the primary and most of the secondary activities in value chain and primary purpose to perform the transaction and collection of data. So if you have seen, this is on the lower level of management in the anchoring to the organization. So transaction processing system basically is one of the most important aspects as it is the it is the frontline collectors of data, as well as the initial processing would start from this process. And sometimes majority of the status or the data available in the organization will depend on how the collection has been done at the transaction processing system level to be able to be used to support decision making or to make report easier. So this is one example of transaction processing system. This is a Java program, but basically what is important here, it allows adding data to the system and providing the initial data. So if you observe what I'm saying about critical information to be collected and for process and critical for future processing would be the contents of this data. For instance, here we write customer as general technologies and we have salesperson order example contact Bradford Chan. So for instance, if we will have the contact would be, for instance, referring to a person, we have here Bradford Chan. So there is a big tendency for the secretary or for the user of the system to input for instance the first name and last name. If this form will allow collection of data directly or adding data directly without specifying the first name or last name of customer or contact, it would confuse later on further processing about this data. So this is one example that we need to be careful with in what type of data should be collected and how it would be processed. Because if we commit a mistake on transaction processing system, we need to further process that data later during the management information system. For instance, it's always easier for us to collect last name and first name to prepare for processing in the next level of processing the data. So it is important that you design your transaction processing system such that it can be processed well, or you are sure of how will it undergo for further processing, so that appropriate data collection method or data collection mechanism can be integrated into the transaction processing system. This is also the reason that we always evaluate ease of use and sometimes data analysis on different interfaces, whether it's easy or effective or it's easy to use, because it is important that the collection of data at this particular level would be enough or prepared to be processed for the next valuable information that will give input to decision makers. The next purpose is management information system. Basically, what I've learned before is that management information system are actually management reporting system. These are it also boils it. If you look at the process before, it is sometimes similar to reporting system which summarizes data from the transaction processing system. So the primary purpose here is access, organize, summarize, and displayed information to support for supporting routine decision making in the functional areas. Decisions supported are more structured. That means sometimes the report from management information systems are already templates of the reporting system of the organization. So for instance, we have in our ESMS or enrollment system, we have the summary of a number of students enrolled in each program or in each colleges, in each college. So um, the management information system support for that particular system is already embedded as part of its process, and the processing for each of those variation within that perspective on of processed information is also determined by the management information systems. So the primary purpose is process data into information. This is characterized mainly by their ability to produce periodic reports range from repetitive to ad hoc and topics operational efficiency, effectiveness, and productivity. Example, a daily list of employees and the hours they work, or a monthly report of expenses as compared to budget. So others used for planning, monitoring, and control in replenishment, pricing analysis, and sales management, constructed in whole or in part by end users geared toward middle management. So I would like to emphasize here the constructed in whole or in part by end users. That's because it can be regenerated further by users to support their appropriate decision. And it's not necessary what has been made in the management information system would be ready made, because sometimes decision makers requires a different perspective of the data collected. And if it's not available in management information system template report, it can be regenerated again by using software such as Microsoft Excel or other related systems to visualize the data being presented at the management information system level. This is a functional management information system example. So this is a report system. So if you've seen, it's obvious already in the table how does the functional management information system looks like in the present organization. So we move on to the decision support system and the intelligence support system. So the decision support system support complex non-routine decision typically employed by tactical level management or the middle management whose decision and what if analysis are less structured. So it means that from the transaction processing system, if you have seen, we have the more the structured itself, it is on the transaction processing system, and the less structured or non-structured we go for the top level management. It presents the result plus expand the information with alternatives, and some decision support methodologies are mathematical modeling, simulation, queries, what if, such as online analytical processing or cubes, and data mining. Also related to the decision support system is the intelligence support system. So AI, these systems perform intelligent problem solving. Example of a classification under this category is the expert system, which is one application of AI. It provides the stored knowledge of expert to non-experts so the latter can solve difficult or time-consuming problems. So when I was in undergraduate degree, there are a lot of develop expert system supported by rules. These are established rules within the organization as from the perspective of the expert. So actually it's hard to capture sometimes the intelligence of the expert or the knowledge that you're using to decide, because sometimes there is some it's not usually structured, and if it's structured, it's too complex for us to be represented. And this is one target of an expert system. Even if there are a lot of roles, or for example, it can establish thousands or hundreds of rules to determine before the AI can support decision, but in the end, it will always be evaluated by human being. But if we embed expert system within the organization, it would somehow support easily and more and make more the and may support the efficiency of the organization. One very classic example and a very simple expert system in our enrollment system, for instance, if you will classify that as an expert system, although basically personally I cannot really classify that as an expert system because it's not too complex. But one very simple example is the automatic identification of the status of students, such as regular, warning. Those are example of decision that the system itself has been created rather than human being. In fact, there is a current issue or maybe concern or a problem in that system. For instance, if initially the system have already identified what your status as a student, for example, if you will be warned as approved students or you are warning students, and you complete one of the INCs that causes for that classification of yours, it will not update, meaning the experts or the AI behind or the rule, actually it's just a rule behind the system, didn't update of the completion of INC. Maybe there might be triggering point that can be embedded within the system that when someone completed the INC, it will change the status of the students. But of course, there is another issue, because sometimes if you complete it in the next semester, it's not also applicable that you change the status of the student. So there are cases that that there is a difficulty of implementing that idea into the system because it might be applicable in some aspects. But of course, rules can always be established so that your expert system can be more intelligent than what is expected of the basic rule. But the major requirements of an expert system is it's the number of rules that can be established. That means it's not easily be made by human being itself. For instance, in my example, if the advisor can easily determine the status of the students, so no need for an expert system for that. It's just a simple what if statement within the program or within the system developed by the programmer. But if it's too complex for be represented, that a simple human being cannot decide easily on the different factors to be considered, so it can be classified as an expert system. So the system provides a difference between the two, and the decision support system. Let me move my video. The decision support system, users make their decisions according to the information generated from the system. The expert system, the system makes recommended decision for the users based on, I cannot see my slides actually, based on the built-in expertise and knowledge. So that means the major difference is that if you have observed that a decision support system will wait for the users to input the final decision, while in the expert system already the system already provide a decision before the user can evaluate the decision. So there's a major difference in terms of implementation into the program. And what strategic information systems can be classified before. This is the first definition of the first perspective that we can use in terms of strategic. Usually, executive support systems can be classified into strategic information system, but here we will take up first that executive support systems or enterprise information systems originally implemented to support senior management. That so if you've observed, it might be that the executive system would be all the strategic also would support the senior management. These systems have been expanded to support other managers within the enterprise, and at the senior management level, they support strategic activities which deal with situations that significantly may change the manner in which the business is done. So if you look at the diagram, you have your external information and it will be stored in a data warehouse, while the transaction processing system is also feeding up the data warehouse where external information are stored. And at the same time, the MIS update that, and there is a decision support system generated from MIS, and the executive support system actually look at the data warehouse and how it would be supported. Then we have the non-computer support and the internal internet other computer support. So here we look at here that in this diagram, they consider the human being as a decision maker. And what is new with the executive support system compared with the earlier system is its consideration of the external information to be integrated or feed into the decision maker rather than internal information itself. So the executive support systems actually are a collection of internal and external information that might help decision makers in their uh, in support for their decision making. But take note also that there are non-computer support and internet other computer support. So that means there might be hard copy that's available in the organization, or in normal terms in some organization is that there are non-documented information or practices that the organization has been doing, or some chismes can we see, or information that would influence the decision maker based on the feedback of few users. And of course, the internet other computer support that it can be information also acquired by, or digital information acquired by the decision maker. So there are a lot of consideration for executive information system. In fact, this is one of the most challenging information systems to be developed to support decision maker. And developers would always be challenging for the developers, the changing user needs. What I mean is looking at the changes of needed by the top management, especially that they are also acquiring data that is not really structured. That means a video or a report from TV or radio can be part of the decision-making tool of the organization in terms of reports. So it is difficult for the developers to be integrated that in the executive support system, but the assumption is that all information that the decision maker might use to support the decision would be integrated into the support systems. And the more technologies that we have, the more it would be easier for managers to integrate this information to be able to put a strategic direction for the organization. And I think that's it for the review of the different information system. We have also the office automation system, but this is quite easy and you can identify the basic support for that. And the knowledge management system. Okay, so we will stop up to this point, and it would be the other one would be on the next video.